another adventure in Guyanese literature. And welcome to the program Oral Tradition. Welcome our guest all the way from England, a person who has won the Guyana Prize for Literature on 2 occasions. Her very first collection of poems, Cornerstones, and her first collection of stories, wonderful collection of stories, Bone Soup and Other Tales. You've done well.
Thank you.
You've done well. 2 books, 2 prizes, man, this is great going. And you have a novel in the making.
Yes, I'm finding it difficult, and I'm also working some short stories, but everything gets done eventually. I'm a slow worker.
Yeah. It's the novel is the longer form of this.
I spend a lot of time relocating bits from the dustbin.
We all do that. We all do that. Yeah, that's where ideas come from. Some of the ideas that we have. But today, or on this segment, you bring something new to us.
Yes, well, I'd like to read from the Other Windrush. I was invited. It was a commission from the Commonwealth Studies Department on literature, migration, and indentureship. And I was invited to submit a piece and for the collection. So I'd like to read from that.
Yeah.
And my essay was called From BG to GB.
Ah, nice. BG, British Guiana to Great Britain.
Yeah. And really the focus was about loss, a sense of loss. Loss and all its turmoil, that emotional chaos when you're leaving home. And I was also trying to remember the best of what I'd left behind when I had a sense of unbelonging in a new country. It took a little while to do because I had to focus on mental and physical dislocation. But I submitted it and it was accepted and published. So I was delighted that the Commonwealth Studies Department invited me to do it. So I'd like to read a short part of it, yeah?
Yeah.
It was the worst of times, a period of racial unrest adding to uprisings and upheavals that began after independence when British Guyana was renamed the Republic of Guyana. The seeds of catastrophe were sown and long lines of trucks carried armed militia throughout the country. There were murders, riots, rapes, racial strife, and food shortages. That disquiet spread like malarial mosquitoes. For 7 months, radio broadcasts relayed the outbursts of violence countrywide. Then, after protests and petitions failed, the British troops arrived. I guessed years later that in the midst of nationwide turmoil, my father had calculated the probability of a safe life under Burnham and reached a poor prognosis. The only available serum was emigration. Although memories discolor with age, this one revisits me like a lingering ghost. It was a Wednesday when Mommy said, "A letter came from your daddy in England. He wants you to live with him. No school today. We have things to do." I looked at her astonished. When? Why? Was all I could think about, this unexpected news. A vaccination for measles, a dental hygiene certificate, and various other documents were required before I could cross the ocean to where the Queen and our rulers lived. A visit to the bank was necessary too, and I was allowed to leave with £5, a transaction officially stamped onto the page of my passport, which also stated that I was 4 foot 6.5 inches long and 13 years old. What a hectic time it must have been for Mummy, with many other young children to care for. But the following week was full of excitement for me. Even now, 57 years later, I remember my first ferry ride on the Torani with Mummy. Its horn bellowed, it belched smoke. The race of water on the Berbice River was magical, and as it whipped up furious fans of smoke, I could barely contain my rapture. After collecting my visa from the British Embassy in Georgetown, we went to bookstores where green cloth from my dress was bought, orange cotton gloves, white slingback Cuban heel shoes, a new towel, and a comb. They were bought for my trip. A pair of gold bangles were a special gift from Mummy. I marveled at the statues and the traffic lights, and I drank a whole bottle of Pepsi. It was the best of times. But a young gullible me never knew I'd be homesick. I never knew that after a wet-eyed departure from Atkinson Airfield in Georgetown, on board a Monarch airplane with a pumpkin-coloured crown, that I would spend so many years yearning for my mother and my siblings. Or that this voyage would be a voyage without return. I knew only that I wanted to see my father, to call him Daddy, and that I was going to live with him in England. I'd witnessed him beating my mother, seeing her laying helpless, bruised and weeping, and yet, despite his mistreatment of us both, images of his black and white brogue shoes, his shining Raleigh bicycle and Wellington boots had not blurred. I loved him. He was a handsome school headmaster whose hair and handwriting I admired. I was sure to go on a double-decker bus with him, and I would see Buckingham Palace. I arrived to a blizzard of unknown faces, among the many things which seemed strange to me, amidst the dense crowds in an immense airport. I was worried that I'd forgotten what my daddy looked like. Somehow, it seemed easier to picture a palace and snow-covered holly trees with berries, but his face eluded me. And his house was large, with carpet on every floor. Somehow eerie at first, because I was used to the slap of feet on floors and children beating up and down wooden stairs. But here people's feet made no sound. A bathtub with hot running water was new and fascinating. I now had a stepmother and 3 new siblings, as well as my own room, my own bed, and a desk and a wardrobe. And the room was silent, except for the bubble of voices coming from a black and white television set downstairs, which became a consuming interest of mine. I found the advertisements especially entertaining. Although homesickness did kick in, school was safer at least. The only thing to sting my ears was the cold. There were no sharp tongues, no wild cane, or painful ruler wax on the knuckles when I was late, or no more sadistic schoolmasters when I did not satisfy some homework requirement or other. I no longer needed to fear authority, and I found some grit. However, my intellectual disability, disregarding numbers, meant I sought to flee the intolerable mathematical monotony and the world of thorns that was geometry, algebra, and the rest. Indifferent to failure, I limped through lessons, I dawdled between classes, and increasingly I began leaving school, sometimes visiting the library, window shopping, or roaming aimlessly. But my favorite place to sulk was always Tooting Market. To a truant, age 15, the market teemed with life and laughter. I loved the cussing parrot known as Mr. Mac, who greeted customers with, "Pay me 5 bob," and "Big batty boy." I watched the peddlers. I entered bakeries and bookshops without any challenge, even though I wore my school uniform. The bustling place was full of chaos and colour. It was like a balm. All of that and the calypso music added to the melody of rich, airy Caribbean voices. Apart from the feast, for my ears and eyes, there was the aroma and scents and seasoning. I marvelled at gaudy clothes on sale, the noise of the people higgling or bartering. That gave me a surge of contentment. But I didn't know that I was yearning. A letter from my mum in Guyana, travelling to England in a blue air letter form. It was like reopening a wound. Was I yearning and longing for familiar things? The Indian films in Gaiety cinema? Or the sound of church bells? Or the sound of warm rain as it pelted and glinted on the zinc rooftops and afterwards gleamed in puddles? Or the smell of fried callaloo and shrimps whilst Ma's pot stirred and scraped the sides of her black cast iron carahee? I'd wonder what the time was 5,000 miles away. I felt a longing, a raw pain that sharpened itself, and it became a dull hurt on certain days, and I tried to shake off a hollow feeling that I'd forgotten or lost something. And as time passed and more letters arrived, I always opened them. I could hear my mother's voice. I could hear her sweeping the yard or sifting rice. She was always cleaning. She was full of energy. And I was shocked when almost every member of my family had scattered like rice grains across the Atlantic Ocean. It was almost a weekly exodus. And some children in the family, they were exported for their own safety, with stickers on their chests declaring them to be unaccompanied minors. My younger sisters and brothers, who were not yet teenagers, had already left for North America, and I could only reach them in my head. I'd left with 2 gold bangles, but I lost the jewels that were my family. And that day, my endless wish to live again in Guyana dwindled to nothing. And I faced the fact that I was trapped in London with no hope of return. Thank you.
I like to listen to that or record that in its entirety. It sounds so smooth, although it tells you about the good times and the bad times. It tells about 2 places, right? BG and GB. Right? I would love on another occasion to record that in its entirety.
Okay. I'm
while
sure
we
we can
talk,
fix
because so now that sounds so sweet. That's before you started or writing your stories and your poems.
This was during lockdown, or immediately afterwards, and also at a time when you're isolated at home and you have no family. And you have no contacts except by telephone. That loss became even more poignant. You were isolated indoors, and it brought back a lot of memories, a lot of mental dislocation at the time. Yes, it's very hard. Millions of people worldwide, you have to live with absence, and you try and cope with it. But when I was writing this, I was trying to remember the best of what I'd left behind, and that was family. Yeah. It was
the jewels you left behind. The jewels you left behind. Yeah. How did you feel? I mean, it couldn't have been easy. It couldn't have been easy to do that.